So welcome to the first episode of Racing Stories brought to you by the Cotswold Film Company. And the idea of these is that we're going to get an insight into some of the stories out there that you might not have heard before. They'll sit on the Cotswold Film Company YouTube channel and as podcasts on Spotify. And the first episode is with this man here. Doesn't need much introduction, Paddy Brennan.
Hi, I do. How are you?
Very well, how are you? How's things going? How's retired life?
Yeah, good. Getting used to it. Retirement was on my mind for a long time, and I think the biggest fear was that day would come, and I knew it was coming, and it's how I would feel when I retired. And I think it was a massive relief. When I retired, I was just relief, and yeah, I've absolutely no regrets. I feel very lucky.
So you say relief. Is that a relief that you've retired in one piece and healthy and happy, or is it a relief because of the mileage you used to do as a jockey? What part of that is relief, do you think?
It's a combination of so much as a jockey. Where do I begin? Fear was never one of them. I've just been in Tenerife and we were in this water park and the slides were so high. Still crazy, still seek that buzz, but what comes with a jockey is not torture, but close to it. It has to be, so much disappointment, so much expectation, so much pressure. When you ride for a big yard, and for me, you look into every single bit of it, the staff, the trainer, families. When you go out there, it's really, for me, it was always a passion. It was always meant so much, and I felt like I was carrying not just me when I won, but a lot of people in the racing industry, and the relief was just that pressure.
You'd always understood that pressure would be there, because in the sport you see the whole team, don't you, constantly?
Yeah, you see the whole team, and I've always worked with a team, and I absolutely loved it. But from the moment you get in your car to go and ride it wherever that is, it's just that feeling. Like, yes, of course I'll miss bits of it, but it was that with pressure, and there was never any moment in the car on the way racing where I thought, I can't win today. It didn't matter what price it was. I had to make a case for that horse winning, and yeah, as I say, look, I loved it, but I carried that for 27 years, and there was a lot of times where I didn't win. There was so much disappointment, but it was a drug that kept you going. Just that one winner would always make up for the, 95 losers. So
going right back to the start, I read somewhere that when you're younger, you're into Gaelic sports and things like that, and competing there. Is that where it all started, the kind of bug for competition in the first place?
Yeah, I loved my hurling. Played for, first of all, Ardrahan, and started under 8s, under 10s, under 12s. Then I was getting some Galway County hurl trials. Unfortunately, didn't get picked on any occasion. I was disappointed, I was gutted, but I just loved it. And that's one thing you didn't get further on in the story is, hurling, or we had a team. It was brilliant to play in a team. You always had reassurance from someone around you. And yeah, I loved that, and that was where I was going absolutely 100%. I never had any ponies. I never had a direction of wanting to be a jockey. I just love sport.
So was there no, not from a racing background, no kind of horses really?
No, I was brought up on a farm. There was no line of horses there really. It was just through a friend I sat next to in school. That's basically where it all started. Really?
So tell me about that then. So you were at school, and what made you kind of go towards that direction of horse racing?
Yeah, I was at school, and I suppose when it came to class, I'd normally try to find the one that would cause the most trouble. That was maybe the way I was, and there was a lad called Kieran Gaggan. I sat next to him every day. He told me he had horses, and I was actually going to see, on this occasion, I was going to see a friend past his house. I'd never been to his house before, but I'll never forget, I was cycling down the road and there was a Shetland pony tied to the gate, and I was just halfway past and I thought, stop, because he was there. I could see my friend, Kieran. And I went in, and the pony was tied to the gate, and I jumped up on it, and that was literally it. I loved it. The pony didn't even go anywhere, but I just felt something that day that I thought I could try this again.
That's amazing. And then from there, did you get a horse of your own, or how did you?
No, like then it was just, again, through school, maybe my parents would let me down on a Saturday morning and sit on a horse, and it started really, really slowly because I was 12 before I sat on a horse. So as much as I wanted to be the best rider in 2 days, it wasn't going to happen. So yeah, I had to work my way, and I'd ask my mum, could I go down on a Saturday, and then Saturday, then came Sunday, and then I wanted to be there 7 days a week.
Amazing. It's like an addiction then to that riding side of it. Got you straight away.
But yeah, the freedom, I loved it.
And then when was it that you started working in racing and started at Jim Bolger's, is that right?
No, it was actually, I was on a pony. Then we got a pony on loan from Connemara, where we have a small holiday home there. And I was, a neighbour of mine, she's now not with us anymore, but she probably changed my life. She seen me on a pony. Her name was Lady Agnew, and the pony was one of them ponies used to rear up. He was a little bit like that, and I loved it, of course, because it was a challenge of always falling off, but I got used to staying on. And she seen me, and to make a long story short, she said to my mum, would I be interested in going to a racing yard? And I can picture it like it was yesterday. My mum came in the door from church on a Sunday morning. She looked at me and she said, would you be interested in going to a racing yard? And I was like, absolutely, please, now. So yeah, that's and then that was to a place called Jerry Stack's, and that's where it all begun.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So how old were you then at that point?
I think I was 14. I was quite, it was for a summer, and I went there for a summer, and he had a connection with Jim Bolger.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember going there, and I put my two hands over to one side to tighten the girth. That's how inexperienced I was. And I was just so behind, but I knew I had the right people around me. And look, don't get me wrong, it took so much work. I had to work so hard just to even ride out, and it was always a learning curve. I think when I started off first in Jerry Stack's, I thought maybe this isn't as hard as everyone makes it out to be. But you soon realise, the competition, it's the little things. You think you're always further advanced than you are, and then you have a massive reality check. But yeah, it was going on to Jim Bolger's then was the complete changing point, and not so much the changing point. I think Jerry Stack's was the foundation, and then we just built it from there.
And Jim Bolger's yard it's been an amazing kind of, the amount of jockeys that have come from working for Jim Bolger is quite incredible, isn't it? Why do you think that is?
Like, I've had plenty of teachers fail, and I've had a lot of people that tried to control me that maybe failed, and I think Jim Bolger was the first person I was probably scared of, and I think that's not scared he was just complete, I don't know, Sir Alex Ferguson. He just had a way, and he had words. He was just different.
Did it kind of help you to almost realise the scale of the sport at that point, and the importance of each ride and the importance of the horses,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there was no ride to start with. I didn't even get to ride out. Again, I've come from Jerry Stack's, I'm thinking this is going to be easy, and suddenly I realised that I wasn't actually good enough to ride on his gallops yet. So the magnitude and the competition was just fierce. So literally I'm at the very bottom of the ladder again, and yeah, I've got to work my way up.
Who was there at the time? Is there any jockeys that you were there that you looked up to at the time?
Yeah, there was loads. Conor Everard, Seamus Heffernan, Ted Durkin, Kevin Manning, obviously, Declan Quirk, and others that I'm forgetting. But yeah, there was so many. It was such a list.
Yeah. And then you started, I guess, looking at the flat to start off with.
Yeah, well, there was never a jumps in. There was never even a dream of jumps at that stage. All I wanted to be then was sort of a flat jockey. I had never done any jumping really. Yes, I'd done hunting, but I'd never done any jumping. So no, I just wanted to be the next, I don't know, Kieran Fallon, Mick Cannan, Kevin Manning, something like that.
And was it your your height, your weight that stopped you from kind of pursuing that flat dream? Or
I think I did my apprenticeship, and as I say, it started with being able to ride out one lot. Then it was strict in gyms. There was a time where I had no lots because maybe I wasn't working hard enough, and I had to, again, it was work. And then eventually I got to ride as many lots as anyone else, but then I wanted to ride work, and I got to ride one lot of a work, and then I mightn't ride work the next work day, and it was just a build. But my weight did become, I did a 5-year apprenticeship there, I think. It was a long time. I think I rode 8 winners. My strike rate wouldn't be great, but there wasn't probably a lot of the weights I could do, but as I said, the education was just incredible.
Yeah. Where was the transition to looking at kind of national hunt racing being a realistic future?
Yeah, towards the end of gyms, I had my first ride over hurls while I was still in gyms, which he didn't know completely about because he wouldn't have been a massive fan of me doing that because I was so light. I was so weak because I was trying to do 8'10" and I was so tall. And yeah, rode over hurls once, and another day I rode. Jim would never find out when I was riding over hurls because there was no success. But one particular day I went to Gordon to ride for Jim Bulger. Anyway, I finished 5th and came in, said what I had to say. But I had a ride later that day over hurls, which he knew absolutely nothing about. Anyway, it was 20-1, and Classic Grounds it was called, and I beat Ruby Walsh's short head. I'll never forget this. It's brilliant. But obviously this was no longer a secret because it made the papers and, you know, the TV were talking about it. So I came back into work the next day. I'll never forget. I'm walking out and you normally say, "Morning, boss." He go halfway, swinger, halfway. Gets to me. He goes, "You clown." And I just literally looked at him and he went, "You could have been killed."
Really?
Yeah,
really?
You could have been killed. But that was just his way of sort of looking out for me a bit. As I say, I was only a frame, but that was the turning point. That's when I knew.
That gave you the buzz.
Yeah, I wanted to come to England in Jim Bulger's, like Tony Mackay was like David Beckham.
Yeah.
Anytime he turned up, we were all literally in awe of him, literally peeping over the door to see if we could see him walking in. So, yeah, that was the turning point.
So you really looked up to Tony McCoy in the way that, you know, he had made that same move, really.
Yeah, everything in Jim Bulger's was always comparing to Tony Mackay. I used to sweep a gateway in that he used to sweep in, and I got it on many occasions where Tony Mackay never swept it like that. I'm thinking, I bet he didn't even sweep it. But anyway, we had many an argument about Tony Mackay, but he was friendly with a couple of lads in the yard, Pat O'Donovan in particular, and when he came I got introduced to him, and he's got me a job with Paul Nicholls.
Brilliant. So describe that move over. That must have been almost quite intimidating. Hard to go straight into someone like Paul's, was it? Or...
Yeah, I think I had so much experience on the flat. Obviously, when I came to Paul's again, I maybe had a flat jockey style, and I was expecting it to happen overnight. It definitely didn't happen overnight. It probably didn't happen at all for a few years. So, yeah, it was just good to come over here. When I got dropped over here, I was literally homesick the first night. I was thinking, when I wake up in the morning, I want to go back home. But once I woke up in the morning, I never looked back.
How different do you think the racing scene was here to how it was back home in Ireland?
I asked. It was all I've ever wanted to do was come to England. But once I got here, I was like, God, this is different. Yeah, it's just different. It took a lot of getting used to, but you know, very quickly I realised I was in the right place, the right country. And
at Paul's, you know, I mean, so just going back to current day, I mean, I've watched you work around so many young jockeys here, and how they look up to you as a mentor to them, and you help them out. Did you have someone like that at Paul's that, you know, to kind of look up to and to kind of work with?
There was Joe Tizard, there was Sam Strong. I didn't really, they were sort of doing their own thing. No, I was on my own, but I was doing so much research, and there was nowhere else to go really, bar Paul's at the time. So, as I say, it was slow, but it's probably what I needed.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't good enough, and in 2002. 28th of February, about 10 a.m, I had a horrific fall, a horrific leg injury. I mangled my left femur. And I said to you, going to Jim Bulger's was the turning point in my life. Well, breaking my left femur was the turning point in my jump jockey career.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I can't tell you how bad that injury was. I remember lying on the ground, looking up, thinking, I'm happy to go now. I was in that much pain.
Really?
Yeah. Air ambulance came. Got a bit of gas in air, and we were back on. We were okay again, but my godfather in Ireland it was video recording then. There was no live racing TVs. It was so much easier, believe me.
Yeah.
And he had recorded all my races from when I was riding. And when I got back to Ireland and spent probably 5 months over there with this leg injury, I realised how bad I was.
Yeah.
No, I genuinely did. I watched replay after replay, and I was blaming him, and there was only one person I had to blame, and that was myself. So from that recovery, I was keen on maybe moving from Paul's, but I thought that wouldn't be very professional, so I went back and did one more season with Paul Nicholls, and then it really picked up from when I moved on from there.
So that was the realisation of, I need to, what would change the way you rode, change your style, was it? Or?
Yeah, like I was basically horrific. I felt like I was, to change so much, and I came back, and every ride, it was getting a bit easier. Maybe racing channels were starting to come in. You could see more replays. I was working alongside a few people that, I'd become friends with in the weigh room, and we were competition. Jamie Moore, Sam Thomas, Christian Williams. There was a whole list of us there that were competition, and we were making each other better. But yeah, I think when I came back after a broken leg, I think I rode maybe 9 winners. That felt like 90, that was massive. Just to get going again, got my confidence, and the rest was really took off from there.
What was it that's always motivated you along the way? I mean, looking at Tony McCoy, it's no secret that people have always said he was a serial winner. He's addicted to winning. Same with Paul Nicholls, I guess, as well as a trainer.
Yeah.
Have you been like that? Is that what's motivated you? Is it winning? Is it the owners, your colleagues? What is it that motivates you in your career as a jockey?
The addiction is winning, basically. It's the long and short of it, And it was people like Tony McCoy that made us all better. Maybe, Richard Dunwoody made him better. But suddenly we had AP, Ruby, Dickie, so many good jockeys.
It was a brilliant generation of jockeys.
I always picture them as the Man United team that beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League.
Yeah.
I felt they were the people I was riding against, and it was an era that was, hopefully one day we'll all get together again. But yeah, it was special. It was
an amazing. That's the kind of time when I was getting into racing myself.
Yeah.
And it was a great privilege to watch such a great group of jockeys all at the same time.
Yeah, and then we made each other better. They made me better, but you had to compete with them on a level playing field. You had to get to a certain level, and you had to keep improving. There was no let up. It was constant, but they were the best to ride against. They were hard but fair, and we had respect for each other, and it was great. So
it was on from there to Philip Hobbs?
Yeah, this was the turning point. I'll never ever forget, I remember Chris Broad, my agent at the time. We rang Philip for the job, and it was between me and, I'm not sure, I think it was Andrew Tinkler. We were fighting for the same job. Anyway, I sent Philip a video to watch me ride, and I promise you now, I'd say if I had 50 videos, I couldn't have sent him a worse one. I thought it looked good, but he said it was horrific. Anyway, with persuasion from Chris Broad, he chose me, and he was the man I needed at that time. He gave me so much confidence.
And did he give you a lot of opportunities?
It was just, I remember it was the first morning, towards the end of Paul Nicholls, as I hadn't really been schooling. I just hadn't gone great. I was big into sending them, firing them, looking for big ones. And, Paul was a busy man. But when I went to Phillips, I'll never forget, I schooled 9 horses the first morning I was there, and he said to me when I walked past him at 10 o'clock, "You were really good this morning." I sort of looked at him, I thought, that's mental, he just put me belief into me straight away.
Yeah.
It was something so small that meant so much, and then I suddenly thought, I've got a chance now.
Yeah. You joined Philip Hobbs, you're getting more opportunities, and you were champion conditional.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I was with Philip a year and then I was champion conditional, or was I with the first year?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, we hit the ground running. He told me there was only going to be rides in conditional jockeys races, and there wouldn't be, and I was like, 100% no problem. And I think I went to Stratford my first ride, got a lift with him. He had a driver, I was in the back, and it won. Oh yeah, it was good then, I knew I was in the right place.
So he was one of those people that gave you loads of confidence, gave you loads of opportunities, but also put you into the spotlight a bit, really. It's so important, isn't it? You get noticed, you get watched. Things like becoming champion conditional, they really do put the spotlight on you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think once I moved there, it opened up so much more opportunity in that area. You had Kevin Bishop, Jeremy Scott. There was a load of trainers around there that I could start to ride out for. But the one thing I missed that I never had was belief. And that's what Philip Hobbs did. He was the one man that made me believe in myself. I'd never done that before.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. How long did you work for Philip Hobbs? How long was that stint with him?
Yeah, I think it wasn't that long actually. I was 3 years, and then I got offered a job with Graham Wiley to go north. And yeah, it came to an end sooner than I liked, but it was an opportunity I couldn't turn down.
But also goes with, that job was English Reaver.
Yeah, English Reaver. Wonderful horse. Do you know what? I didn't actually ride him much.
Really?
I never rode him out. I never really rode him out. He had a girl that rode him every day. First time I rode him was in the Cleve. I missed him when he won the first time with Tony Dobbin in the race at Newbury. Cleve was a disaster. First time I rode him, I didn't know him. He wasn't going, and he took off, and I was there too soon. And the next time I rode him was the World Hurley. It was brilliant that day. I've never felt so much pressure riding a horse I did that day.
Really?
Felt like my job was on the line. Felt like Howard was, it wasn't going well. And English Reaver, I thought, Tidal Bay, I just got beat on the line at Ballymore. Or maybe it was the Supreme, I think it was Ballymore. And yeah, I thought, if this doesn't win, this is it. And I went down to the second hurl, and I promise now, he took off and he landed before it. And I thought, here we go, this is over, but the rest was history. We got going, he won, it was brilliant, yeah.
So that was actually your second Cheltenham Festival winner, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because you won the Fred Winter the year before. I think it was a couple of years before, maybe. But from going back to, being a young lad in Ireland who's obsessed by racing and getting going to riding your first Cheltenham Festival winner and coming back in front of those stands, what was that feeling like?
Yeah, Shamayun was so special. The Fred Winter, 24 runners, whatever it was. I think he was 40 or 50 to 1. 40 to 1. And yeah, I got so excited. I used to make some idiot of myself when I win like that, but I couldn't control my emotion. All that emotion was from how hard it was for me to get where I got, and I appreciated every second of it. Cheltenham was a special place. Even just to get a ride there at the start before any of the victories was amazing, yeah.
I mean, Cheltenham is special to anyone who's international hunt racing. It is the pinnacle, really, isn't it? And I know they try and say it's not all about Cheltenham and everything, but it is incredibly important to our sport.
Yeah, people that say it's not all about Cheltenham are just pushing pressure to one side because it's expectation, When you're going to the sales and you want to spend money, you're not buying an entry horse, you're not buying a Punchestown horse, you're trying to buy a Cheltenham Gold Cup horse, and that's what Cheltenham's all about.
I always thought that you rode Cheltenham very well. It was kind of a track that you really did have a lot of success at.
Yeah, but that was true opportunity of trainers that I was riding for. When I went to Nigel Twiston-Davis, he would have a runner in every race at every meeting. Yeah. And that was such an advantage. I was riding 7 rides a day every time I was on, so I literally got to know every inch of the track and when to go and when not to go, and yeah, I learned so much there.
So working for Nigel Twiston-Davis then was a huge chapter in your career, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, as I said to you, going into ride English Reaver, I knew Howard's wasn't going to last long. It wasn't going well. And I'd been riding a bit for Nigel that season, and I'd been dealing a lot with Fergal O'Brien, and I knew I was getting the gate basically, and I rang Fergal and said, would there be a job if the inevitable is going to happen? And he said, yeah, you could start in the morning. So we started from there, and yeah, it was an incredible time.
So, that must have been, you probably, I'm guessing really, but you maybe were at a time in your career where you weren't feeling comfortable necessarily in your previous job, and you felt that you wanted a change. Yeah,
no, well, I was getting a change whether I liked it or not. It wasn't my choice, but without that change, I'd never won a Gold Cup. But I always took positives out of every incident in my career.
Yeah.
I promise you. I looked back at that time and I thought I learned so much riding good horses. I could have rode the good horses really badly, but it was another stepping stone to reaching the top. Well, no, we don't feel like we ever got to the top, but climbing it anyway.
I remember chatting to you after Dysart Enos won at Cheltenham the most recent season, and we were all like, obviously it's a great day and everyone's ecstatic and she put in a great performance. But I remember saying to you then, how good was that? And you said it was great, but we need a yard full of them. You're still focused on getting on the bigger horses all the time.
Yeah.
How important are those big grade ones and the Saturday horses? And
I think that's what kept me going for so long in my career, to get to 43 was I felt incredibly proud to get that far. But what kept me going was the taste of a Gold Cup or the taste of a King George. That was all I was picturing every day I got up, every day I rode out, was another Gold Cup, and it kept me going, but it didn't happen, but we tried.
But, over your career, there's so much success in those major meetings. And, when you started at Nigel Twiston Davis's, obviously it wasn't long before Imperial Commander came along into your career.
Yeah.
And he had been running at Cheltenham. He actually had a lot of success at Cheltenham. I think he'd won a bumper at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
And maybe even novice hurdle at Cheltenham before you rode him. But when was it that you kind of first sat on Imperial Commander, and maybe did you think then he might go on to be a...
Well, I schooled him before I first rode him in a Paddy Power, and I literally schooled him, and I was like, wow. Now I've schooled a lot of horses since, and I might have went wow about them as well, so I didn't always get it right. But I remember in the Paddy Power, I think he was favourite, which is pretty big for me. I'm riding a favourite in the Paddy Power, trying to get a good position. And I jumped off 5th or 6th. I'm never, honestly, after 2 fences, I'm 3 lengths clear, and I feel like I'm doing a hack canter. This is like not normal. But I literally, he won it easy. He was pulling up in front. And I did say in a Channel 4 interview that day that this is a Gold Cup horse.
Yeah.
So I literally put my neck on the line. He was only rated 139. But I knew I'd ridden something really special.
Yeah.
That was the day I thought this could be the one.
Were you confident that he'd win the Paddy Power Gold Cup that day? Because he did look very well handicapped at the time, didn't he? And I think after the race he went up, a lot in the weights. I think the handicapper put him up to 1.5 something.
Nigel Twiston Davis is the most positive man you'd ever ride for. He told me his biggest certainty, but he used to tell me that a lot.
Did that give you a lot of confidence?
Sometimes when they were 20 to 1.
Really?
So that was just the motivation he'd put into you. But no, you see him schooling and you think, wow. Do you know, he could mix it with the very best today. He was some horse. So,
I mean, you said yourself that, you have to convince yourself that every time you go out there, you make a case for the horse.
Yeah.
Do you think that was something that Nigel maybe gave you a bit of that kind of thought process? That he instilled a lot of confidence in, telling you that these horses
had... that was probably his strongest, was his belief in a horse. You could be on 6 rides, 5 of them could have got beat, but he'd be telling you going out on the 6th one, this is your best chance today, and you're thinking, well, the last 4 were favourites, so this is but that was just, he never, you always keep it going, keep the head up. We worked really well together. And
Imperial Commander obviously won a Ryanair. And I never really, and I've always wanted to ask you this, about what kind of horse you believe he was. Was he an out and out stayer? Did he have more speed than that? I mean, to win a Ryanair, you associate horses, having a few more gears.
There's horses I've ridden, I'd say he'd win over 2 miles, but Imperial Commander, no, he didn't have that kind of speed. I remember winning the Ryanair. He was in top gear all the time. It was goodish ground, good to soft. I needed to meet Everton right that day, and I was on the edge everywhere. So that was just a lovely part of the build up to the Gold Cup. I think if he ran the Gold Cup that year, he might not have won it, and he definitely wouldn't have won it the following year. So that was, people knocked the Ryanair, but it gives your horse more of a chance to win a Gold Cup. And yeah, he was definitely more of a stayer.
And then the day, 2009, the Betfair Chase, I still to this day think it was a dead heat. What was your thoughts on that?
I thought
race?
I'd won. Ruby said, well done. Yeah, I thought I'd won. One of the, it was a great race. I'll never forget it. It was the first time he ran over 3. But yeah, I felt like I'd won everywhere. I got a bit excited that day, and I was pressing buttons early, and yeah, I learned so much from that race. That was the day I really, however convinced I was in the Paddy Power that he was a Gold Cup horse, once I rode him that day, I was convinced he'd win the Gold Cup that year. And
I remember you talking to me about this race before and saying that Ruby Walsh, you learnt a lot from Ruby that day.
He did, yeah. He destroyed me, yeah. Mind games. Go on, Paddy, you got me, he kept saying from 3 out, and I'm thinking, like, I'm 3 out's perfect, but he's getting in my head, so I'm pressing sooner than I should have been. But that's what top sportsmen could do,
Yeah.
They would destroy you, yeah.
And you came up against, arguably one of the greatest 3-mile steeplechasers of all time, Corto Star, that day.
Yeah, massive that day. There was so many people there. It was pretty deflating, but yeah.
And you say that gave you the belief that, you could, he really was going to be a Gold Cup horse.
Yeah.
What seemed to go wrong for him at Kempton? Because he never went well in the King George, did he?
Hated the place. He just hated right-handed. He hated the track. You couldn't hate Kempton, but it just didn't suit him.
Yeah.
King George is an unusual race. And to win a King George in a Gold Cup, Cato Star, it's so hard to do. No, he didn't. And when he went to the King George every time, I didn't actually, I know I said think every horse is going to win, but I just knew everything was against him. And once he came back safe from that race every time, I was fine because I knew what
you knew you had another
Nigel
go
would
in
convince
March.
you he's going to win the King George, but it just wasn't going to happen. But I knew what would happen after that.
And so, I always looked at his record as well. He did seem to run better fresh. Was that something that you ever thought? I mean, he had a very good record first time out.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a big tank of a horse. He definitely needed time between his races. Richard Bevis Sparky rode him out every day. Obviously Nigel trained him. Fergal they had some team around him, and he was trained when it came to the Gold Cup. He was trained to the absolute second. He was unbelievable.
So going into that Gold Cup, you're on a very fancied horse, but it's not an easy looking field, is it? You've got Denman, Quarto Star. What was your thought process kind of leading up to that, and what was it?
My thought process was Quarto Star couldn't make one mistake, and that was genuine. And obviously for me there was absolutely no pressure. Every billboard, every town, every signpost was Quarto Star and Denman, so it was lovely for me. But I did honestly believe that if he made one mistake, I beat him. Yeah,
and he did.
Maybe I'd have beat him anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you say he's trained perfectly for that day. He must. Did he really feel that was the absolute pinnacle that he could run at?
Yeah, 100%. But Cheltenham's a long week, and that was the Friday, and I finished second in the Champion Hurl. I might have had a place in a handicap. So when you're going down to riding the Gold Cup and the week hasn't been going well, you're thinking, here we go. You're feeling not deflated, but you need something to happen. So yeah, my life changed there.
The atmosphere before a Gold Cup is like nothing else, is it really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
What's it like in the weighing room? No,
it's tense in the weighing room. And I've ridden other Gold Cups where I took it in, but when you're in a position like an Imperial Commander with a chance, you don't take in what's going on. You don't even look at there's people there, but you're away from it. Your focus is so it's like you go deaf for a bit. You're so in the zone.
And do you still watch that race back at all? Do you remember it?
No. My kids have watched it, but no, I do remember it. I had an old skybox where it was saved, but that's gone now, so I'd have to get a DVD, and DVD players and nine, so it would take me too long to set it up.
Was it the greatest day of your career? Obviously, a lot of people would look at your career in terms of the on paper, the records and the races, but do you think that was the greatest moment? Did you really appreciate it at the time?
Yeah, it probably was. I think in racing we're all in danger of saying the best and this and the best horse and the best day, but yeah, that was probably the best day. Yeah.
What is that feeling like when you've won the Gold Cup, you've gone down in that, you've gone down in history, in the history book, in the record books, as a Gold Cup winning jockey?
Yeah, I think just winning that day was just complete relief, just to have a Cheltenham Festival winner, and the pressure of that. It probably didn't sink in straight away that I just won a Gold Cup. It's just any winner at Cheltenham feels like the Gold Cup. Believe me, it does. But it was life changing, because every day I hacked to the start or anything after, you're always known as Paddy Brennan Gold Cup winning jockey, and so I'm proud of that.
It's an incredible achievement, and there is only one Gold Cup, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. There's only one Gold Cup, and yeah, it's so hard to win. So lucky, so hard to find that horse.
Yeah. And you've been based here now since you were working with Nigel.
Yeah, since I left Howard's in 2008 it was. Yeah.
So working with Nigel, obviously, you said actually you knew Fergal beforehand, but that ended up being, did you ever think that would be such a strong connection that you'd end up riding for Fergal when he set up as a trainer? And
yeah, obviously when he said he was going to go and train himself, I knew there was a fair chance I'd ride for him, because I had such a good association with him in Nigel's. But yeah, when Fergal started, he literally started I think with 8 or 10 horses, so he's done incredibly well to get where he is today.
So he started up at Grange Hill as well. That's where he was.
No, he actually started in Timmy and Bertie Murphy at a place.
Of course,
near
yeah.
Cirencester. So he started there, and then he went back to Nigel's second yard and went from there.
Yeah, brilliant. And you've worked for Fergal ever since, and your last season, or I think it was your last season, you said I'm only going to ride Fergal, and did you know at that point that you were kind of coming towards the end of your career? Was it something that you had planned out beforehand that last season would be your last season?
Oh yeah, I had a fair idea, yeah. But I just got to the stage in riding that it wasn't fair riding for someone else, because I just never give it the same ride. And riding for Fergal, I felt like I was still hopefully helping him and his business. So yeah, I just narrowed it down to just him. So if I did get a fall, that was it.
I mean, Fergal's always said that he owes a hell of a lot to you for helping him get on the map when he started out as a trainer. He said to me before that you really kind of elevated the start of his training career, and probably in the flip side of that is that it probably prolonged your career as a jockey. You had that drive still of wanting to ride winners for Fergal.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. It was a new lease of life when he started training, because as a jockey, especially when you get old, you need refreshing, you need new challenges, and when he started training, it became a massive challenge. He didn't hit the ground running. It was tough for a couple of years, but once he got back to Nigel's yard and came to Ravenswell, it took off.
I mean, this place is incredible, isn't it? It's a great place to train from.
Yeah, Ravenswell has everything here. It's a lovely system, and yeah, really, really good spot.
I've noticed, from working with Fergal and yourself, that you've always had a big input into, talking of where the horses, maybe should run, what kind of ground they should be running on, what kind of track suits them. Do you think that's been a really important part of the success here as well, is that feedback?
Yeah, like that's been massive, and having that experience of tracks, ground, definitely knowing where to run, where not to run. We had a really good system for a long, long time, so obviously I handed over the keys to Johnny Burke and them now, so hopefully they can continue it on.
Do you know Johnny fairly well? Obviously you worked together in the weighing room a long time.
Yeah, Johnny wouldn't have been in England as long as some others I'd worked with, but I know him. Yeah, he's done really well, so big challenge for him here now.
Yeah. When in your head do you think it was probably time that you were coming towards the end of your career and you were planning on looking at retiring?
Mentally, I think it was. I kept like trying different things to think, is it right? Try this. Maybe I can ride longer. You'd have a good winner. Maybe I can ride for another year. But there was lots of maybes, and it was I was always, every time I walked into the weigh room, it never felt like it was going to be my last ride, but nothing lasts forever. And as I say, my last race, it felt like I was riding in a Gold Cup. It was the longest race ever. I was in an argument with the starter at the start. I said, how long? He said 60 seconds. I said, it's the longest 60 seconds of my life. I just needed them to jump off, and yeah, when you're at that stage,
Yeah.
And obviously I wanted to go out with a winner. Looked around 3 out and I thought, fuck me, this is happening. Got to the line, I thought, thank fuck for that.
It was some celebration, wasn't it, after that moment, because obviously the jockeys lined up there, and was that something you'd organised beforehand? Was that something
I think Harry Skelton and a couple of others had a fair idea what was going on, and I think they got excited about it too, but they knew I'd sat next to Harry for so many years, and Bridget came racing that day. That meant a lot, she came because she knew what might happen, and the respect I got from the jockeys, I'll never ever forget. They all walked, as you've seen, down behind me, and yeah, it's the perfect ending, it really was. Had my family there and feel so lucky.
First, number 6, Man of the People. Second, number 10, Marilla. Third, number 1, Sometimes.
And being at Cheltenham, which is a track, like I said earlier, you had so much success at Cheltenham. It's your local track. It is the place, isn't it? And it was a very special day, and that long walk back into the parade ring.
Paddy Brennan!
But like, you know, if Di Sartinos had maybe won or ran, I was thinking there, and she didn't run, and I thought, is this ever going to work out for me that a day comes together? Because, you know, it was a long old season. A few mishaps along the way, but it was all worth the wait.
Yeah, I mean, you said earlier you had that feeling of relief, but it was a real celebration. I mean, I remember watching you with your family in the parade ring, and you were chatting to your son, and you were saying, you know, you'll be a jockey one day. Don't be sad, you know, you'll be a jockey.
Hopefully.
All right, boys, stay on. You're going to be the next jockey.
Are your children all into their racing?
Not
big time?
really, no. They're into rugby, football and stuff, but you know, no. Yeah, it is. It's sad. It's the next generation. It's something that couldn't last forever, but I have to keep my son's heads up and we move on.
How do you look back at your career now? Is it something you're really proud of? Did you achieve everything you wanted to achieve? Have you always got that thing of like, I wish I'd done this or I wish I'd done that?
Yeah, I achieved absolutely everything and more than I could ever have imagined. And you know, bumps along the way, but absolutely no regrets.
Once you've done that, that's the perfect time, really, isn't
I'm
it?
so lucky. And as I say, yeah, it's been a hell of a roller coaster, and I've absolutely loved it.
It's a 27-year-long career.
Yeah, a long time.
How do you think the sport has evolved and changed, or, you know, is it a different sport to how it was when you first started riding? And how have you seen that through the years?
It's a different world. I harp on about it, but mobile phones, Apple, Google, social media, all that changed to make the world move faster, but it's leaving people behind.
I was going to ask you about social media. So social media is something as a jockey, as any athlete, sportsman, that must be an incredibly complicated thing to be involved with, really.
I learned how to challenge social media because I was old enough and experienced enough to know how to deal with it. I remember one day in Kelso, I rode one, should have won. Wasn't great on it. And the young lads were telling me the abuse I was getting in the weigh room. Young lads that were sitting in the weigh room were saying what lads were saying on social media. That was just, I'd got to the stage where that was going in one ear, out the other. I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But I see young lads towards the end of my career riding, coming in, maybe not ringing the trainer, not ringing someone for advice, going into social media to see what Billy from Blackpool was saying.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you're in trouble if you're doing that.
Yeah.
You know, you're taking someone's opinion that doesn't matter. Look, we could go on all day about social media and you have to promote yourself, but you know, you got to look at people as successful as Ryan Moore. I don't think you see him on social media.
It's a balance, isn't it? Like you say, it's a great promotional tool, and it's been a fantastic thing for the sport in terms of giving people an insight into. I mean, you know, this will go out on social media. Yeah. It gives people a real insight into things that you don't normally see.
Absolutely.
But in the same way, you know, maybe cameras are in too many places nowadays. Maybe there's too much shown. You know, maybe there's too much said, too many opinions.
It's something we can control, our young jockeys can control. But you know, hopefully someone like me or their jockey coaches can help them who to speak to, because at the end of the day, it's a short career, right? You got your sponsorships, you got to earn a living, because you can't be dependent on turning your back on everyone or you will end up very poor. So you've got to play the game to some degree, but I think, you know, concentrate on being a jockey and let someone else run that side of you. You know, don't be getting wrapped up in all that, because the lad that tells you you're brilliant is the same lad that will tell you you're horrific 2 days later.
Yeah, yeah. And what, you know, would you say being a jockey, there is a lot of pressure on that, on your mental health and on that, you know, the thought process of getting beaten, say, on a favourite, or it must be the pressure we talked about earlier, but does that have like a long-lasting effect? Do you need someone by you to kind of help you through that, do you think?
Well, Mammy leaves you because you're not always going to get that reassuring hug, but mentally it definitely affects you. Being a jockey isn't the healthiest life, and that's not because of diets, it's not because of travelling, it's just a disappointment. You know, you go and race in Cartmel on a bank holiday weekend, 6 hours for one ride, doesn't work out, trainer isn't happy. It's demoralising. It's making you feel so small. And then you need to wake up in the morning And you need to work for someone that's going to, first of all, say good morning and how are you? Might not sound a lot, but it means a lot. And I'm not sure that happens enough in this game anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean that.
And so obviously towards the later time in your career, a lot of those jockeys looked up to you, and I know for a fact you've been part of helping them out. You might not even see it as much, I'm not sure, but did you kind of fit into that role? Did you feel like it was quite a nice thing, becoming a bit of a mentor to people, and people could look up to you a bit in the sport?
Yeah, I loved. There's a lot of young lads do. I loved to help. Great bunch in the weigh room. But there's lots of lads I knew from a very early stage were wasting my time. Asked me a question, and then asked me the same question. Just it doesn't work. I had a great team of young lads here at Fergal's. I really enjoy working with them. Same at Nigel's. Same at Philip Hobbs's. People just gel with me. Maybe I'm a Marmite. You either like me or you don't, but that's out of my control.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there is so much competition. There's a lot of pressure, but there does seem to be successful jockeys seem to be coming back year after year, don't they?
Yeah, but I do worry for the game a little bit, as in, trainers, a lot of trainers that aren't training anymore. They're all trainers with 30 horses, 25 horses that aren't able to sustain or financially keep that is tough for these young jockeys, because they're all dependent on Fergal, or they're all dependent on Dan Skelton or these bigger trainers, because once Johnny or Harry Skelton are booked, sometimes there isn't a lot around it, and they don't have these other trainers to get out and about and get these rides.
Yeah.
So it has become a tougher game. Everyone's dependent on the same person now, and that's where it's so hard to come through that.
I mean, obviously this season has seen Willie Mullins become champion trainer over here. The sport does seem to be dominated by a few big yards. Do you think that will naturally come to an end, or do you think that will be something that continues to get even more?
No, Louis, everything comes to an end. Like I said to you, my career did. Everything will. Nothing will last forever. But it's how long's a piece of string, and as long as Willie Mullins' buying power is the way it is, nothing's going to change, because it's all to do with the sales rink. I've worked with so many trainers, and it's all, to me, a lot of it's down to the power of the horse. If you're getting horses with very little ability, you're on the back foot straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads me on nicely to what you're doing now. Could you tell me, what's the plans after retiring as a jockey? What's Paddy Brennan going to be doing?
Yeah,
from now onwards?
I've obviously set up Cotswold Bloodstock. We're basically going to buy and sell horses. Getting out of the sales already. Yeah, I love it. I'm learning, but I do see an opportunity.
Yeah.
If there's ever a time to try and bring good horses into this country, is now. And that's something I'm really wanting to get my teeth in. It's something I did a bit when I was riding.
Yeah.
Get involved with maybe someone trying to find a horse for someone, or sitting on a horse in Ireland, or sit on a horse in France. So I continue to ride out. I'll continue to ride out horses. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Do you think that's every business has got to have a bit of a USP, and I guess for your business it is Paddy Brennan is the USP. It's your judgment. It's people are going to be looking at your judgment basically on these horses.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I'm going to try and buy the best horses. I've got to believe in what I'm doing. Nothing's guaranteed, but I'm hoping I can make it work. And then to run alongside that, I'm going to have my racing syndicate called Paddy Brennan Racing. That's very soon to be set up, on the edge of starting, so we're not sitting down. No,
absolutely, that's great, and that's a different type of buzz, isn't it? It's still, you're still involved in the competition at that point.
Oh yeah, I get a massive buzz of a horse that I might, or I know the owner or whatever. I love, yeah, I really do. So I'm lucky. There's still a buzz out there for me. Nothing will ever replace riding the winner, but that was then. This is now.
Do you like watching that journey from a racehorse, from the sales to the track, and whenever you buy a horse in the sales, the dream's alive, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Absolutely, but it's all about soundness. Buying a correct horse, vetting, so important. You're working with the right vets. Louis, it starts so far back before you can work forward to that race. And yeah, it's just trying to make it affordable and trying to make it happen. It can't happen quickly, but maybe as soon as you can possibly make it happen.
And you're based in Broadway, and you're busy enough over there as well, aren't you?
Yeah, lucky I have quite a lot of horses there. That's the bread and butter really. Fergal's been extremely good to me. Max McNeil, Graham Jelly, I could go on. There's so many people that are lucky to have so many horses for, so long may that continue.
One thing actually I was going to ask you that I didn't ask you earlier is how much studying into form did you used to do as a jockey?
Loads.
You were a real
So
form
much,
man.
yeah. You do it maybe 3 or 4 days before, not so much when declarations were done. So I'd know, even now, I watch every horse in England, every single horse's form. Yeah, because you got to know what you're racing against, and if a horse performed on a day or if he didn't. Yeah, I love that. I love that side of it.
Is that something you'll still do you think? I mean, you know, it's one of those things, isn't it, racing? You can lose touch with it so quickly if you're not watching it every day. It's so many horses running, so many races running.
Yeah, no, definitely. And from setting up my own syndicate and the bloodstock side, I want to know every horse in and out of form, where there might be an angle, and yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. That's great. Well, first of all, thanks so much for doing this today. It's great to chat to you, and good luck with everything in the future.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.
Attaboy.